$100,000. You can't make one of my roosters quit. He said, I don't have any roosters here today, but I'll go home and get one. Jack and I'll go over there. And he had roosters there with big old long sharp spurs. You know, I knew what he had in mind. And he said, we'll go over there and we'll get one of those hatchcocks. And for you to win the fight, my rooster has to run. If you can't make my rooster run, I win. Well, I knew damn well that Grady's hatchcock was one of the sharp spurs, you know, 2-year-old, fresh 2-year-old with big old long spurs. Well, he's liable to whip that hill rooster. You know, and Larry wouldn't bet him, but.
And that was Grady Fields?
Yeah. Grady didn't back down.
My dad tells the funniest story about Grady Fields and him leaving post. You know the story I'm talking
So
about?
you met Grady Fields when you were in the military then?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I was stationed at Fort Sill, and Grady worked in the motor pool. He was, I don't know, some kind of straw boss there where all the buses and everything went.
Tell Joe that story. That is the funniest.
Was Grady a lot older than you, or would he have been about your age right now? Grady Fields.
Grady was 81 when he died. I would say Grady was probably close to 20 years older than me.
Wow. Wow.
15 or 20.
So you knew Shorty Bullock as well?
Not well, but yes. I saw him at the pit. I've never been to his house or anything like that. But, yeah, I remember Shorty at the pit. He was usually a pretty tough entry.
Did you know any of the old-time cockers from Alabama? Anybody from Alabama?
Well, in my heyday, I knew everybody that was anybody, you know. I mean, we all hit the big fights.
Did you ever know a man by the name of Carl Saya? He used to write in the magazine under the name The Breeder, Carl Saya from Birmingham, Alabama.
I did not know him personally, but we traded letters a little bit.
Me and him used to correspond back 10 years ago when he was already up in age. He was in the military as well. And he had the Lacey Roundheads, I think, that he got from George Woods, which was Lacey's, what was it? Lacey, the old man, Judge Lacey's grandson was George Woods. And he was able to get those chickens. And he used to talk to me about how he was able to make the Roundheads a white family, you know, out of the red family through inbreeding, you know. And he taught me that anytime you breed, you always go back to the hen side instead of the cock side, for the reasoning that the more you go back to the cock side, the smaller the chickens would begin to come out, you know. And he was telling me about some of the guys that he used to talk about. There was a guy by the name of Bob McGarity. He used to write in the book also by the name of Old Bones. He used to go by Old Bones. And he had Caldwell Reds and the Lacey's and many, many other bloods. But I learned a lot from that old man there in Alabama. Yeah. We talked several times, you know, over periods of time, you know. But, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot from these old timers, you know. Nowadays, these people that getting into the, you know, they don't want to learn anything. They don't want to listen to anybody. They want to do it their way, and it's only their way, and that's it. Yeah. You know, and a lot of them get discouraged because, you know, it doesn't turn out the way they want. They want their chickens to be, so they just get out of the game. You know, they get out of the game. But you got to be open-minded, man, because if you're not, you won't last very long in this sport.
Yeah, that's pretty true. Yeah. But I always went back to the fighting side. If I started a family of fowl, or in my family's a fowl, I would always go back to the fighting side. You know, the game side and the bottom side, you know, say Hatch and Kelso, for example, I'd always breed back to the Kelso side. You know, whether it was the rooster or the hen, I didn't worry about that. I just always went back to where I thought the best fight would be found. Mm-hmm.
So what pure does it exist, pure? A pure blood, does it exist?
Well, probably not, unless, now the Spurriers are a closed family. And Hurston Lacey started with the Spurriers, I'm going to say 64, 65. first mating was a brother-sister mating. And he bred them brother-sister through the years. And that is an absolutely closed family.
Okay, so when you say close family, that means no other bloods
No other blood.
added to that family.
None.
That means it's a close family. That stays there.
That's your gene pool. And the object of inbreeding is to narrow the gene pool. And the more you, now, when you inbreed, if there's any dirt in a family, it'll show up. So when I started with chickens, the first thing I would do if I was starting with a new family, the first thing I do is breed them brother-sister. Because that first year, you find out if there's any dirt there. And then if there's no dirt shows up, then you can go forward with them. But if there's any dirt in there, it'll come out. But you've got to narrow that gene pool. And then the spurriers would use them. Lacey and I, after my dad died, would always, each of us would always raise all the spurriers we could, pure. Which means you're breeding, by this time, you know, we've got it separated enough so we called them cousins, but I mean, there was no new blood. They were all pure spurriers. And I don't know what they were. We called them spurriers because they came from Tom Spurrier. But he'd raise all he could. I would raise all I could. And then, when they were a year old, would match mine against his and fight him. And would fight him down till there was two left. This year, I'd get first choice. Next year, he gets first choice. So each year, we would each get a stag for a brood cock. And we know for sure it's the best two stags because we fight them down to two. Wow. One for him, one for me.
That's being pretty ruthless, man. That's calling to the max right there. And you know, that's
the stags that lost, we go home and kill their sisters.
Wow.
The only pullets we brought forward were the sisters
to the winners.
To the winners.
Wow.
If you're going to be a tough rooster,
that's a lot. That's a lot of record keeping too, and a lot of single mating. I imagine.
Here somewhere, I've got 3 ring binders so full of. We may have thrown them out. I don't know. Full of. I mean, I had records on records on records. I knew where every chicken came from and where it ended. And if you're going to be, you know, when we got married, I told her, I said, well, but before we agreed to get married, I took her to a rooster fight because I knew her not wanting me to fight chickens would be a deal breaker in spite of everything else. So I took her to a rooster fight in Oregon, and she sat with my mother up in the stands. I was handling, and she bet $2, won the fight, put the $2 in her purse and took it home with her.
What years were those?
That was 1980, I think.
1980.
82.
Something like that.
Or no, 82, yeah.
Man, I had just graduated high school in 81.
Yeah.
I was 17 years old at that time. I'm 56 years old now.
Yeah.
That's many years ago.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
The calling, when they got down to 2 roosters, or 2 stags, that would be out of a good bunch of them. You guys probably have, what, 30 apiece?
Oh, we'd usually have, somewhere between 10 and 20, a dozen or so apiece. It took all day to fight down and get through them. But we had our own little pit set up, and it was private, nobody else invited, and it would just be, you know, like the 3 of us and Lacey and his wife and sons or something like that. Enough of us so that we'd have holders and hillers and handlers, you know.
Wow.
But the chickens that, the spurriers we were fighting against each other, you have to remember, these stags are out of the previous year's winners, and they're sisters.
Wow.
So, I mean, and we never had any trouble with them coming small. With all the inbreeding, our problem was coming too big. It wasn't uncommon to get a 7.5 pound rooster.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we didn't breed that rooster, but I mean, we'd have them. And
that's where the culling comes in and the selection, right?
yeah,
Yeah. I've been breeding those Charlie Pierce hatches from Jeff, his son, and this past year, well, last year I made some stags, and one of them out of like the 6 stags I got I call him a dinosaur. I mean, he's big bone, tall, and you can see that because of the inbreeding, but it's only up to you to be able to recognize, what a cull is, and he's a stag this year, and he's probably pushing 7 pounds. Where his brothers, you look at his brothers, and oh man, they're just 5-pound nice chickens, good bone, good eye, nice back on them, tight wing, pretty good, as far as an individual goes,
So we had 1 acre squared off fenced with so many chickens on it. That was just the battle fowl, right?
Well, that was the courtyard. We had a lot of others.
You guys would spend all day down there fighting into each other, you and Andy, or just sparring.
Yeah, but it was like 2 or 3 acres. I don't remember. It's a pretty good piece of ground.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, some people, they just take it to a real harsh limit, to get the best of the best. I'm not a big timer, I just take care of what I can afford to take care of, and if I can't take care of 1 chicken like I can the other 100, well, then there's too many chickens for me.
Yeah.
So I'm a small timer. I don't.
True. Well, if you, even a small time, I mean, we all start out being a small time rooster fighter, but if you want to go to a big fight every now and then, you have to have chickens that measure up. Otherwise, you're just going to contribute to somebody else's
Pocket.
And,
Yeah.
I just, I like my chickens, and I just can't stand to have somebody whip one of them. It's the truth, and it bothers me when I lose a fight. So I have to do everything I can do to make sure I don't lose many fights. Nobody wins them all, but we always maintain a really good percentage.
Wow.
But there's an old man named Cantu up in New Mexico. He lived just down from the pit. Well, Ray Cantu and I were friends. And Ray sold a lot of chickens in New Mexico. Ray's a tough rooster fighter boy. And he came over and introduced himself to me after he saw me fight a few chickens there at Chow, because I was a new guy there. And we'd sit and talk. And if I was not with just the Spurriers, and this is the same thing Ray Cantu did. And one day he looked at me, he said, "No wonder you have tough roosters." He said, "That's exactly the way I do it," after we were talking. And I didn't tell this to just anybody because I didn't want anybody else doing it. But if I'm going to breed a family of fowl, I am going to make damn sure those chickens can kill a chicken. So if I breed this cross and this cross, usually the hens would be sisters, and I never breed a yard, I single mate. Then I would fight the stags out of this mating against the stags out of that mating. And whichever one prevailed, then I kept them and their sisters. I killed all the others and their sisters and their mother.
Wow. Very smart, very smart.
No, if you're going to fight chickens and you're going to do it successfully, we fought all over the world. Like I say, we had a pretty tight camp. We had long knife, short knife, and gaff guys, and we were a tight group. We trusted each other. We'd all go, if somebody didn't want to go, it was okay. Like if Andy and I wanted to go to Copper State, or if Tibbles wanted me to go with him. We were all free to do our other thing. But I took care of all the chickens. It was all my chickens that we fought. But they would come out, and, on Saturday, everybody would show up, and we'd go haul horse shit and shavings. You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Are you getting ready to leave? I know you got things you got to do. We'll cut it short here shortly.
We'd all go up to the horse ranch up there. It was a big horse ranch called Cedar Downs up there. And we'd all go up there. We had this huge ass trailer and load it up full of horse shit and shavings. And everybody would take it back down, and we'd, you take those pins, we'll take, we'd divide up the labor, clean out the pins, put in fresh horse shit and shavings. And, it was my property and my chickens, but everybody was there to work on it. You can't be partners with people that are too damn lazy to come help.
Amen to that. I hear that. I've had many of them, you know, and some of them guys, they just want to go out there and just, you know how it is, you know, they just.
Well, they think they're going to make money with
Yeah, when it comes down to actually doing the work, you know, they kind of shy away from it. Yeah, I'll be there, but they never show up. Yeah. You know, but when the chicken fight, you know, during the molt, nobody comes to visit you. Nobody, you know, once the season starts up again, everybody's all friends again. Everybody's ready to go. But when it's hot out there and the chickens need to be watered, nobody wants to show up. Nobody wants to go out there and help you out.
Chickens is,
you know.
I mean, it's more work than most people know or can imagine. It's just having chickens is a lot of work.
Oh, it's day in and day out too. There's no time off. But you know, we wanted to go across the border, you know, but with the cartels and stuff, we wanted to go down to rooster fights in Mexico and stuff. But I was with a guy. We were going to go over to Ojinaga, up across from Presidio. There's a big pit there. It was real close to the border too. You didn't have to drive way down into Mexico. And we had it set up with the guards where we could take our chickens in, but we couldn't bring them back.
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And you know, we'd take care of the guard there too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And
yeah.
You know, we drove down and talked to him, and we had it all set. And then 2 or 3 or 4 days before we were supposed to go, the cartel went in and shot up the pit there at Ojinaga. And it was Tom Broom that I was going with, and I told Tom, I said, man, I'm not going. I said, those guys are down there shooting at people, you know. And they killed 2 people that day.
Ah, not
According
good.
to the way, you know, it came back across the river. And that's the last time I thought about going to Mexico. I mean, I'm just not going to do it. It seems to me like the Mexican guys should be able to come over here and fight. You know,
Well,
they should be. The way things are now, but with the Border Patrol and all the horse shit going on, it's probably pretty difficult to get back and forth with chickens.
mm-hmm.
And you couldn't do it at the legal crossing, like at Laredo or down here. You'd have to come across the river.
Yep.
They've got so damn many people down there now. I don't think you could even bring a rooster across the river to fight.
Nah, you can't. You can't. You can take them in, but you can't bring them back. You know, there's these big intercontinental derbies going on now, you know, during the years, you know, during the seasons. And you can have them shipped over there, and you can fly over there wherever the intercontinental derby's going to be, and have your cockhouse there and fight in the derby, but you can't bring them back. You either have to sell them or give them away to somebody there. But you know, that's the way it's always been, unless you can find somebody that can cross them back over the river, you know. But it's too much hassle just to cross them back.
Ray Westall, and you know, in those big derbies, this is the kind of guys you'll be fighting against. Ray Westall, up in New Mexico, is an oil multi-millionaire. And Ray, let me see if I recognize